This video is about the ideas of Karl Marx and their impact on world history. I'll explain how Marx's theories shaped communism and led to major political changes that influenced the development of nations and societies around the globe. In the 19th century, Karl Marx developed the fundamental ideas of communism. Together with Friedrich Engels, he wrote the Communist Manifesto in 1848. He argued that the working class should change society. Marx believed that capitalism was unjust and needed to be abolished. Before Marx, there were already socialist ideas that called for equality. In 19th century Europe, workers formed clubs and parties. They wanted better wages and working conditions. These movements were the forerunners of communism. In 1871, workers in Paris briefly took power. This Paris Commune was an attempt to build a communist society. However, it was quickly crushed by the government. Still, it inspired later communists. By the end of the 19th century, socialist parties had formed in Europe. In Germany, the SPD was one of the largest. Some wanted reforms, while others, like the Marxists, called for revolution. The ideas of communism spread gradually. In 1905, Russia saw its first revolution against the Tsar. Workers and peasants demanded more rights. The revolution failed, but it showed how deep the dissatisfaction ran. Communist ideas gained influence. Vladimir Lenin led the Bolsheviks, a radical communist group in Russia. He believed that a small group should lead the revolution. Lenin adapted Marx's ideas to the Russian situation. His ideas became very influential. In 1917, the Russian people overthrew the Tsar. A temporary government took power. People were tired of war and wanted change. The Bolsheviks saw their opportunity. In October 1917, the Bolsheviks under Lenin took control in Russia. They promised peace, land, and bread for all. The revolution was communism's first major victory. Russia became a communist state. In 1922, the Soviet Union was founded. It was the first state governed by communist principles. The government took control of factories and land. However, there was resistance from opponents. From 1918 to 1922, the Communist Reds fought against the Whites. The war was brutal, and millions died. The Communists won and solidified their power. The Soviet Union became more stable. After Lenin's death in 1924, Joseph Stalin became the leader of the Soviet Union. He imposed harsh policies like forced collectivization of agriculture. Many people died in famines. Stalin turned the Soviet Union into a superpower. In the 1920s, the communist movement began in China. Mao Zedong led the Communist Party against the nationalists. After a long civil war, Mao took power in 1949. China became a communist state. During World War II, the Soviet Union fought against Nazi Germany. Victory in 1945 made communism more popular. After the war, communists took power in Eastern Europe. The world split into two blocks. After 1945, the Cold War started between the Soviet Union and the USA. Communism spread in countries like Poland and Hungary. Both sides competed with weapons and ideas. There were no direct battles, but high tension. In the late 1950s, Mao launched the Great Leap Forward in China. He aimed to rapidly modernize the economy, but the plans failed and millions died in a famine. Communism in China entered a crisis. In 1959, Fidel Castro took power in Cuba. His revolution made Cuba a communist state. Cuba became an ally of the Soviet Union. The USA was very concerned. In the 1950s and 1960s, there were protests in Eastern European countries. In Hungary, 1956, and Czechoslovakia, 1968, people demanded more freedom. The Soviet Union sent tanks to stop the protests. Communism remained strict. In the 1960s, Mao launched the Cultural Revolution in China. He wanted to purify communism and destroy old traditions. Many people were persecuted, and the country fell into chaos. The revolution weakened China. In the 1970s, many communist countries faced economic problems. The Soviet Union couldn't keep up with the West. People were unhappy with shortages of goods. Communism lost its appeal. After Mao's death in 1976, Deng Xiaoping led China. He introduced market reforms but kept communist control. China became economically successful. Communism in China changed significantly. In the Soviet Union, Mikhail Gorbachev introduced reforms from 1985 onward. With glasnost and perestroika, he aimed for more openness and economic growth. But the reforms led to unrest. The Soviet Union became unstable. In 1989, the Berlin Wall in Germany fell. This signaled the end of communism in Eastern Europe. Countries like Poland and Hungary became democratic. The Soviet Union's influence declined. In 1991, the Soviet Union dissolved. Russia and other states became independent. Communism almost completely disappeared from Eastern Europe. Only a few countries remained communist. After 1991, Cuba remained one of the few communist countries. Despite economic problems, the government stuck to the ideology. The USA imposed sanctions on Cuba, yet communism survived there. North Korea developed its own version of communism under Kim Il-sung, called Juche. The country isolated itself and became a strict dictatorship. The economy suffered, but the Communist Party stayed in power. North Korea is still communist today. Vietnam became communist in 1975 after a long war. In the 1980s, the country introduced economic reforms similar to China's. Communism remained politically dominant. Vietnam opened up to the global economy. In the 1970s, some African countries like Angola adopted communist ideas, but many of these governments failed due to wars or corruption. Communism couldn't establish itself in Africa. Communism was often criticized for oppression and poverty. In many countries, there was little freedom of expression. Economic failures led to dissatisfaction. Still, some believe it stands for justice. Today, only a few communist countries remain, like China, Cuba, and North Korea. In other countries, communist parties exist, but are mostly small. Marx's ideas still inspire some people. Communism has strongly shaped world history. Communist ideas influenced art, literature, and film. In the Soviet Union and China, working-class heroes were celebrated. Propaganda played a major role in culture. These works are still known today.